The K-romance musical, Maybe Happy Ending, has been getting a lot of love on Broadway since its debut in November last year. Today, we want to analyze the popularity of this genre within Korea and abroad with culture critic Professor Chie Hye-won at Kyung University. Welcome, Professor Chie.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so let's start with Maybe Happy Ending. It's Korea's original musical that's been successful on Broadway, even joining the $1 million club. That's when you surpass over $1 million in sales in a week. So what's behind this popularity?
Maybe Happy Ending is a relatively small musical with only 3 cast members. So developed and premiered in Seoul in 2016. So it has been represented for 5 times with a huge popularity only in Seoul, South Korea. The work is an actually original musical based on nothing, and created by American composer Will Aronson and the Korean writer Park Chun-hoo. And as you said, the story itself adds a very, very beautiful and universal. And also the numbers are smoothing blend of jazz and the chamber music. So the Broadway production is basically similar to the original work, but added one more character, the Gil Brantley, to expand the story. And Maybe Happy Ending is a straightforward romantic comedy about the 2 robots learning what love is and the value of the human connections. So as a well-constructed romantic comedy musical, and even original work has become relatively rare recently on Broadway. So I think the audience is falling in love with this musical.
And I actually fell in love with one of the numbers, 사랑이란, or in English it's When You're in Love. So that number itself really wanted to watch that musical. And I think many can agree with that.
I actually really love the title of the musical, Maybe Happy Ending, because everyone has a happy ending, but this one says Maybe Happy Ending. I think it's a great title. But along with Maybe Happy Ending, the popularity of K-romance musicals has been growing domestically. What are some of the most notable ones, do you think?
The Maybe Happy Ending creators' new musical, Ghost Bakery, recently closed its first run, and it was a love story about the human and the ghost. And another one is Once in a Summer, is one of the recently produced musical based on the 2006 movie of the same name, and starring Lee Byung-hun and Sue. Maybe you guys remember about the movie. And the On Your Wedding Day is another one based on the 2018 movie of the same title, starring Park Bo-young and Kim Young-gang, and it will be opening later this month.
Right, we're going to talk about 그해 여름 in a bit, but unfortunately we do remember. That's how old we are. But now let's move on to the 청춘 or youth romance theme itself, because we talked about movies that evolve around these romance stories. So do you see a connection between that trend and the popularity of this genre within the musical scene?
The movie and the musicals. Yeah, actually the primary target audiences for a musical in South Korea is 20 to 30 females. And the romance movies or TV series are also targeting the younger generation. So I think the romantic stories are attracting more young female audiences these days. And this trend would be continuous for a while.
And I have to agree to that because Professor Chie, a musical that you recommended to me, I watched it just last week and I realized that the audience was 95% female. And it's not an exaggeration. So I guess, yes, this is really important, the target, the 20s and 30s females.
Yes, well, you mentioned before the Korean musical Once in a Summer, or 그해 여름 in Korean, which was based on the Korean movie, recently came to a close. Now, please tell us about how this production and how well it was received.
Yeah, the musical 그해 여름, Once in a Summer, is set in a fictional rural village, Suneri, in 1969, and depicts a pure love story that blossoms at the beginning of summer between a librarian with a secret and a college student who visit the village. So the main musical version, the the musical version follows the main story structure of the movie, combined with beautiful numbers, which is even more romantic than the movie. While the movie version progresses by cross-editing between the past and the present, the musical progresses the story in a chronological order, which actually helps the audiences become more immersed in the work and follows the characters' emotions more comfortably.
Now this one's come to an end, but there's also one that's coming up, which is On Your Wedding Day or 너의 결혼식. I remember watching this movie because this is also a romance musical that's based on a movie.
Right.
So this will start running on March 20th, but already the ticket sales have shot up so high, ranking first. So what are expectations of this one?
Actually, the On Your Wedding, the movie is kind of famous both in Korea and other countries. So the On Your Wedding contains the story of Seung-hee, who believes in fate, and Woo-yeon, who falls in love with her in the first place. So the eventful first love journeys tells a lot of stories to the audiences. So according to the production company, the musical version retained the fun and the emotion of the original work, and while enriching the story and the characters to delightfully deliver the memories of the first love. Actually, the original movie was also remade in China, as we talked a few weeks ago.
Right. Last time we talked about Taiwanese movies made into Korean movies, but this is like the other way around, a Korean movie made into a Chinese new version.
So it was very popular in China as well. So we can look forward to seeing the musical version advance overseas in the future as well.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. But how big of a focus has there been on the genre of romance in the Korean musical industry? Obviously, it's a very romance in K-dramas is huge. I mean, but when it comes to musicals, and what are the themes of features that often appear in a K-romance musical?
Especially for the smaller musicals in Daehangno, the romance is one of the steady selling genres because it could be created with relatively smaller cast members. So however, in the genre of romance, there are various materials and the themes, for instance, romantic comedy or tragic romance, or the historical romance, or even impossible romance. So one of the long-running romance musical in Daehangno is Finding Mr. Destiny, Kim Jong-wook 찾기, which is premiered in 2006 and still running. So it is a long-running musical. So actually the production of many romantic musical dates back to about 15 to 20 years ago, and I think the trend seems to be coming back recently. So many Korean musicals are based on the historic facts and our characters, and even romantic musicals are as well, and are based on the real love stories. For instance, Larhest, which is playing in Daehangno, which is opening in first run later this month, delivers a true love story of a Korean female essayist and painter Kim Hyang-an, whose first husband was poet Lee Sang, and her second husband was painter Kim Hwan-gi. And another example would be Natasha, the Right Donkey, and Me, which is a true love story of a Korean poet Baek-seok.
Now, Professor Chie, what makes these musicals special in terms of having that combination of K-romance features, but also Western romance musical features?
The Korean romance genre contains the sentiments of Han or Jong, so that stems from the Korean historical and social context, especially in the romance stories with the historical backgrounds. So I think while Western romance stories focus on more individual love, the Korean romances rather expand on social and the cultural messages from the larger perspective.
I see. So Han would be, if we would translate it in English, it would be that kind of sadness. And with Jong, it's kind of that connection that you have between friends and families. It's a very difficult term to explain to Western people, but it definitely is shown in many Korean contents. Now, last but not least, what is needed to keep the popularity of K-romance musicals alive, or what's expected to be the next trend?
As we can learn from the case of Maybe Happy Ending, if Korean romantic musicals wants to appeal to global audiences, I think delivering love stories that can be understood universally without understanding the historical or social backgrounds is important. So I believe it is necessary to create the K-romance musicals that reflects Korean characteristics while also appealing to the wider audience.
Well, love is something universal,
right.
So I guess we will, in the future, see more of these musicals, K-musicals, romance musicals, and I hope they make it big on the international stage as well. And thank you very much, Professor Chie, for today, for your insights, and see you next time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Walter. As always, we are going to see you back here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.